Welcome to Embracing Continuous Behaviour Change for Anger Management, the podcast that helps you to calm your emotions and communicate effectively. I'm your host, Clare Bradley, the Anger Management Coach. In this podcast, I'll bring you expert interviews, inspiring stories, and practical advice on calming your emotions and living a more peaceful and fulfilling life. So sit back, relax, and get ready to master your emotions.
Okay, good morning and hello to all of our lovely listeners. I am Clare Bradley, your host, and with me this morning, I have got the Alice J. Lynam, who has the most beautiful smile, I have to say, Alex. You have the widest smile I have ever
Thank
seen.
you. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
So Alex is from Beyond the Binary. So Alex, can you introduce yourself, tell us a bit more about you?
Yeah, of course. I'm the founder of a company called Beyond the Binary. I am a trainer, consultant, and public speaker, and I talk all things LGBTQIA plus inclusion. And I do this because of my own professional journey. So I worked for 10 plus years with young people and vulnerable adults. I was a designated safeguarding officer. I worked in the residential sector, and during that time, I was part of a management team, so I learned a lot about managerial styles and how we communicate and how we create beautiful organic cultures. But during that kind of part of my journey, let's say, I was dealing with a lot around my own gender identity and my own sense of self, where I had significant decline in mental health. I had substance addiction. I was in unhealthy relationships to the point where I was then able to kind of go on this journey of healing and recovery and really start to learn about myself and all that sort of beautiful stuff. And now I'm very much stand in the power of who I am as being trans non-binary. And I just open up this conversation, and I call it a conversation because it's a two-way thing. It's connection to human. And I very much empower people to get things wrong so they can get things right, without people feeling, like they're going to upset anybody, or without feeling like they can't ask questions. Because I'm such a big advocate that every single human should just be unapologetically who they are. And they should just be allowed to just be their full authentic selves without that fear of judgment or that fear of, discrimination or upset. So, everybody can have a fulfilled life, and everybody can be happy, and everybody can be a joyful, and have a beautiful smile like mine. Yeah, so that's a bit about me in a nutshell. I could tell you, could be here all day.
I absolutely love that outlook of let's just be ourselves, because wouldn't that be amazing that
Oh
we don't
yeah.
have to worry about what anybody else thinks or says about us. We can just be, as you say, unapologetically ourselves. Um, and I'd love that.
Yeah,
I absolutely,
and this is where we land as human beings, because we forget about kindness sometimes. We
yeah,
forget about compassion, and we forget about love. And all human beings want love. All
yeah.
human beings want to be loved, and want that compassion, and want to just be seen, and want to be validated. And we lose that as human beings. And I think if we could just get out of our own way a little bit and lean into more conversations about about human beings, about soulful human beings.
Yeah.
I think this world would just be an incredible place to be. Not to say that it isn't now, but I think there is a lot of work that we need to do, as a society, as a world, like globally, around how we just allow people to be themselves.
Yeah, we are, I think, often too interested in telling other people how they should live their own life.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's not our position, is it?
No, no, not at all. But we do get ourselves wrapped up, and it's this construct that we have just been given, Like, for thousands of years, we've just been given this construct, this, the patriarchy and, hierarchy and all of these kind of what we would say are gender norms. Like, we've just
Yeah.
been told that we have to live, women should do this and men should do that, and everything is very binary. When actually, like, there is so much more color and so much fluidity in a human being,
Yeah.
and never mind what our gender identity is. What about the way that we dress? What about the way that we talk? What about, like, our personality and the way that we just hold ourselves? What
Yeah.
about that? That's a big part of who we are, our identity.
Okay. So, from you starting this journey into your work in inclusivity,
Mm.
what has been your most memorable part in that journey so far?
Oh, that's such a big question. um, I think probably my most memorable, as it stands at the minute, is I did a keynote talk in March 2023. Yeah, just over 12 months ago at Manchester United Stadium, and it was in front of about 250 delegates. And I spoke about my journey. I spoke about authenticity. I spoke about, just allowing people to be themselves. And I received a standing ovation. And,
Wow.
and from that conversation, there has been that has generated so much more, so many ripple effects. And that event that I stood on that stage with now, I am now part of their team. I am one of the inclusion consultants, where they are now releasing documentaries, which is being given over to Netflix, and I'm part of that. Like, I'm part of that work, and that is just an incredible achievement for me, for somebody that has really struggled, like, from a resilience perspective or from an emotional perspective. I have struggled to navigate my mental health because I felt isolated, or I felt shamed, or I felt, I can't be visible, I can't be seen for who I am. And then now being able to witness my work being put into documentaries, and being able to witness work going on where it's reaching, like, thousands of people. And it's an incredible space to be on. Look at that as such a great achievement for me. And, in the last 2.5 years that I've been running the business. So yeah,
Fantastic.
yeah, it's
And
good.
it does take, they say, to run a business, turn up as your authentic self, don't they?
Oh yeah.
And it sounds like you absolutely stood on that stage and turned up as your authentic self. And it does take that one person with the gut to kind of gulp down all that fear, like you said, and just stand there and be themselves
Yeah,
and look at the difference that that has made.
yeah,
So
yeah.
hats off to you.
Thank you.
So when you're trying to set up this inclusivity with businesses,
Yeah.
what's some of the biggest challenges that businesses face when they're trying to create that inclusive culture?
I would say that it's the fear, like you just mentioned there about fear. Like, fear takes up about 60% of us as human beings. And, like, we get so consumed by fear.
Yeah.
And that's with anything.
Uh-huh.
But when we're talking about inclusivity, like, it's a big factor of getting it wrong. What about if we get called out on it? What about if it affects our reputation as a company? What about if we waste money and we don't get any return back from it? All of those
Okay.
things. And because there's so much fear around that, then we don't then take accountability for the things that we need to be doing. So I
Yeah.
would be saying, like, when businesses are almost like teetering on the idea, it's that fear factor. And it's that fear factor of, am I going to make any money back from this? Because business is business, and we want to
Yeah.
make money, essentially, to pay the
Um,
bills. But so am I going to am I going to get a return back from my investment? Is this going to impact, like, my team dynamic and my brand reputation? Are people going to then call me out for doing things wrong? Are people then going to be watching me, through a microscope and basically, like, judging everything that I'm doing? And again, it's also about this, well, I don't know what to expect on the other side. And it's this uncertainty of, well, once I step into this circle of inclusivity, I don't know what's going to be on the other side of it. I don't know how this is going to impact my business.
Mm.
And I could tell them, and there is so many positives. Well, there are greater positives than what there are negatives for having an inclusive business and having an inclusive culture, but it's just this massive amount of fear of getting it wrong and feeling like once they get it wrong and they called out on it, like there's no coming back from it. When I've
Mm.
witnessed so many businesses get it wrong, like really stuff it up and then go, oh, okay, I now know what I don't need to do next time, and I'll do
Yeah.
something different. But it all comes down to this mindset of what are your intentions around inclusion? Do you want this to be a tick box exercise, or do you want to have it like deeply rooted into your business in everything that you do?
Yeah.
And that's the difference. It can't be a tick box exercise. It has to be heart led. It has to be all coming from our hearts and and all that sort of stuff.
I was just going to say then, perhaps if they're doing it as a tick box exercise, that's where they're going to get it wrong, isn't it? Because there's
Yeah.
no understanding there. There's
Yeah.
no actual, as you said, heartfelt emotion going in there. They're literally just doing it to tick a box to get the "we are an inclusive employer" kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Well, it looks attractive.
Yeah.
Right, it's from an outside perspective, like it looks attractive. When you see businesses saying, we have an inclusive environment and we have an inclusive board and we have a diverse like working force and all this sort of stuff, and it's like, oh my goodness, that looks attractive, that looks beautiful. But then when you actually step into it, it's
Yeah.
like, oh right, so you've done this for the outward look. You haven't done it
Absolutely.
because it's heart led.
Absolutely.
And that's where brand reputation is damaged. That's
Mhm.
where you get higher staff turnover. That's where you start to lose money. It's not about inclusion losing you money. It's about doing it. It's about doing it with the wrong intentions. It's about doing it because it's a nice to have, or it looks nice, or it looks pretty and attractive.
Yeah.
That's the difference.
And I guess that return on investment, as you just mentioned, is that you're not constantly having to get new staff.
Yeah, yeah.
There's so many.
Yeah, and the profitability, like you're 35% more likely to be profitable in your business when you're visibly and actively inclusive.
Really?
And and you've got 71% of reinvestment coming from LGBT people. Like
Um,
those are big numbers. Like
yeah.
those are really big numbers. And that's just one marginalized community. Like what about other marginalized communities and minority groups? Like think about the impact that you could make simply by, and it's not, and some people as well like get this overwhelm of, oh my goodness, there is so many things to think about. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Yeah, there is, but it's about prioritizing it, and it's about what are your next logical steps. Where
Mhm.
do you want to start on this journey? What aligns to you right now? I work with people who are business owners who are part of the LGBT community, and
Mhm.
they're like, well, I align working with the LGBT community. Right, we'll focus on that then, and then
Yeah.
move on. Like, have your next logical steps mapped out. And it's the investment that you get back. Like, once you start to, so like you invest in say training, or you invest in awareness, or you invest in sponsoring an event or networking somewhere or whatever that is specifically around marginalized communities and minority groups, you might invest say £1,000
Mhm.
and for you to go to that event. You then start to create and generate a community of people who will come and stick to you, like glue, right?
Mhm.
And what happens then is when they stick to you like glue, they reinvest time and time again. So therefore you end up getting, say, 3 people that stick to you like glue and invest double what you've paid to be at that event.
Yeah.
Therefore your profitability goes up, therefore you're seeing reinvestment, customer loyalty, satisfaction, all that sort of stuff. And that all just comes from just having it as part of your heart-led community. Has it a heart-led approach. It makes such a big difference.
And I do think you can always tell the people who are heart led.
Oh, massively.
Absolutely,
Massively.
you can. Because they've got big beans like you, Alex.
Yeah, you can tell. And, you know, people get picked out, like, and it sounds awful when I say it like this, but people can get picked out of a lineup and going, well, you're doing it for the wrong reasons. You're
Yeah,
doing it for the wrong reasons. Because when you start to have conversations with people about it, they're like, well, I don't know about that, or I
yeah,
actually don't know what to do about that. And it's like, well, you're talking about doing it. Like when I do consultancy or I do training, I talk about active inclusion and visible inclusion. You can't do one without the other. Like those two things have to be done together. Like you can't shout about saying that you're an inclusive business and then not actually do the bits and pieces underneath.
yeah,
Or you can't do the bits and pieces and then not tell people that you're an inclusive business.
yeah.
But you have to do it collaboratively together
Mhm.
so that then more people can reach you, so that then your services and your products are able to reach more people. But again, it has to be done from the heart. It can't be done any other way.
Thank you. So let's talk about your recent um, media and public speaking. So you've been featured in various media outlets like
Uh-huh.
In My Skin and in other major publications. So
Yeah.
how has that media visibility impacted your work and advocacy?
Well, so I absolutely hated the media for all reasons. I hated the media because of how they portray people,
Yeah,
how what sort of message that they can put out there. And I started working with PR team, and the first one that I did was like Business Up North or something like that. And I had like this little feature piece in there. And it didn't really make much of a noise. And then I went on and did a feature piece in PinkNews, which is one of the biggest LGBT digital media newspapers. And from that started generating so many more conversations for people. And like, for instance, like on social media, people would reach out, people would reshare the post, people would comment on the post. And the visibility for me was great, like, but it was still this fear factor of what happens when a troll turns up, or what happens,
yeah,
when somebody turns up and isn't great. And it's having this emotional resilience of knowing that what I'm putting out to the world, people need to hear. And it's this strength of self of going, well, ignore the trolls, because it's like me having the resilience of not reading the comments, because that was the biggest
yeah,
thing someone told me, like, don't read the comments,
yeah,
don't get involved with the comments. And that was the resilience for me of like ignoring that, so then it wouldn't affect like the feeling of my worth or whatever. And then when I went on and I did the Metro, which again was another feature piece, and then that was then lent into the Channel 4 visibility. Now the Channel 4 stuff was absolutely unbelievable. I cannot express the care and attention that I got from the Channel
Oh,
4
brilliant.
team. They were absolutely unbelievable. They were so sensitive, they were so validating, they were just they were so compassionate. It was beautiful. And the ripple effect that has made now is it's opened up conversations within like the media spaces around talking about transition journeys, because that's what it
Yeah,
was about. It was around trans visibility, but it was around different transitioning journeys and where people were within their transition journeys, because transition journeys different. There is not a one fits all. Like
yeah,
every transition journey is different. And that was so beautifully captured. But that has created visibility for me in other spaces, being able to link up with more people that are, quite visible within the LGBT world, link up quite higher within like LGBT charities and other spaces and stuff, which has been brilliant. And it's also just generated that conversation around, how we capture this better, and
yeah,
how we capture this and how we start to show real diversity and celebrate diversity on social media or on the television, for example, or on podcasts or,
mm,
all that sort of stuff. But yeah, it's given me that sense of, well, I would say validation within that
Yeah.
visibility, but also within that visibility as come negative impacts and discrimination and transphobia and homophobia and all that sort of stuff. But like I say, it's the resilience of knowing that what I am talking about is so desperately needed in the spaces that we take up. So
Absolutely.
I have to kind of be blinkered. When something goes out, I have to like put these blinkers on and just ignore it.
And I was going to say, how do you manage that in your own emotional resilience? Because yes, you've got to be strong and
Uh-huh.
powerful as a business owner, but then there's that person behind it.
Yeah, it takes. I mean, when the Channel 4 stuff came out, it got very loud. Like, it was very, very loud, like in my corner, like on social media, in my messages. Like, got really, really loud. And it got quite loud, like on the Channel 4 platforms as well. And that was a bit overwhelming for me because I'd never experienced that. And it was very overwhelming. And I was like, how do people manage this on a day-to-day
Yeah,
basis? And when I started to, see people sharing it and like, the likes were going up and you saw really good, nice comments. But then once that started to filter in, the negative things started to filter in, and then the trolls started to come out of the woodwork. And for me personally, it was just like an overwhelming sensation
mm,
of so many mixed emotions and so many mixed feelings. And the hate that people put out there is like, it like really took me back. I didn't really know what to do with it, and it
yeah,
shocked me really. Um, and I stand very strong in myself now because it's taken me a long time to get there. Like,
yeah,
I know, like I'm 28 and but it took me 13, 14 years to be able to find myself.
mm,
And I very much hold myself in that space now. I'm very strong in that sense of knowing. But when you can kind of go, oh, I'm going to ignore that. Like read that, they're being ridiculous. But then when 10 or 13 comments start to come, it does start to impact you, and it does start to think, well, oh my goodness, like why is there so much hate in the world? And then you really start to get in your own brain and think,
yeah.
oh my goodness, there's so much hate, there's so much, blah blah blah. Yeah, but it like I say, for me, it just was a real it was a real strength. It was a real strength of visibility. But I would say, if anybody's listening that is getting involved with the media, just prepare yourself to shut everything off and just let
Yeah,
it do its job.
yeah,
Shut it off, let it do its job, but also enjoy it. Also enjoy the work that you've created, the words that you've put on paper, or the picture that you've put on paper, or whatever. Just enjoy it. Yeah, just sit in that and really, and enjoy it, basically.
because it can quite, and that's the thing about being a member of the LGBT community. It when someone's having a go at you online or something, it's a very personal thing, isn't it?
Oh
Because they're
yeah,
attacking what makes you you.
yeah, yeah.
And I can't, have they actually considered that? I don't know. Do they
It
have?
takes its toll because it is a
Absolutely.
part of you. Like being part of a marginalized community, like your like almost protected characteristic, if we're gonna call it that. Like that is a big element of who we are, and it's a big part of our identity. And it shouldn't be, but it is. Like you don't go into, you don't come out as being straight, or you don't have to tell
Yeah,
somebody, oh, I'm black or I'm Hispanic or I'm Muslim. Like all of those things, all of those protected characteristics, we shouldn't have to tell people that
yeah,
that is a part of us. But or we don't tell people, we shouldn't have to tell people, oh, I'm trans or I'm gay or I'm a lesbian or whatever. But society makes it like we have to do that.
yeah,
And then what happens then within that is that somebody then creates a set, like almost create and paints this picture of who we are. And when you're so right, like the echo chamber that is around the LGBT community at the moment, especially around the trans community, that we have to fight to be seen, and we have to fight for our right to be visible.
yeah,
And it is like this absolute like attack on the soul because
yeah,
it's like this feeling of like, well, why am I any different from that straight woman or that straight person over there, for example? I'm not any different. I just love who I love and they love who they love, and that's just how it should be, right? And it's like this deeply like soulful, like hit, like big punch to the chest, because it is so embedded into who we are, and because of this echo chamber and because of this need to differentiate and to put people in boxes, we have to protect that even more. We have to look after that bit of ourselves even more.
So you call it an echo chamber. So where do you think that has come from? And you said particularly around trans at the moment, and I've seen it. People are saying that you can't talk about that kind of thing in schools because it's not right for school children. Where do you think that? And I have noticed it increase and increase. It's like that ball that's rolling down the hill.
Yeah.
Getting momentum. Where do you think that come from?
I would say it's always under. So if we go back to, say, the 60s, the LGBT community were the scapegoats. Everybody that was LGBT was the problem. They were an issue, they were a debate, they were a question, right? And then we look at the AIDS pandemic. It's gay men, right? And it's almost like now we're going full circle, because we can't just blame the LGBT community anymore, because there is so much more acceptance around sexuality, where it's now becoming the full circle of gender identity. And it's like we're almost like going back in time, because unfortunately our society needs a scapegoat. It needs almost like a problem, and it needs to have a face of that problem. So what's basically happening now is, like, with the trans community, it's like, well, the trans community are the problem. This idolization of, we're trying to push this onto young kids, or we're trying to push the idea around, having gender affirming care. We're trying to push this on young adults, or, well, we're unsafe to be in the toilets, or we're unsafe to be, we're unsafe, to access healthcare on the NHS, and it's all about finding this scapegoat and this problem. And it's not a problem. It's not an issue. It's not a debate. It's just about this. There needs to be fear. And unfortunately, the media creates the fear. And it creates the fear because they need to have a reason or an excuse for the problem. And at the moment, unfortunately, the trans community are becoming a main topic of conversation, because they need to have a problem over here that people will agree with. So all the other bits and pieces that they're messing up goes under the back burner.
Absolutely.
It's like they're talking about trans people, like, well, trans people can't use the toilet. Well, what about maybe sorting out the NHS waiting lists? Is that not a priority for you? No, we're going to focus on, like, taking rights away from trans people. And it's like this battle of, well, we need something to focus on. And because the fear has been instilled into so many people, that now it has become a problem. The trans community isn't a problem, but it's become a problem. Do you know what I mean?
Do you think there are also people out there on social media, for instance, who are not doing trans people a favour? I mean, I was on a social media platform, TikTok, I think it was, and there was a woman on there, I think, and she was saying, well, they were a lesbian, non-binary, transgender mermaid.
Right.
And I just thought that how the mermaid bit threw me, to be fair.
Yeah.
And I just thought, when we've got people that are doing that surely that's not helping the trans community. Or am I wrong in
No, and like it's a very valid thing to say because and that there is something that people would fear to say. So I champion you and thank you for bringing that fight forward. The thing is with self-identity and self-expression is when some people do it to take the mick. And some
yeah,
people do it. So for example, well, if they're identifying as non-binary, then I'm going to identify as a chair. And
yeah,
like things like that where people take the mick and people take, basically will take take the mick out of the trans community and
yeah,
will make a mockery of the trans community. And that's when people start to find it as a joke, right?
yeah,
Whereas like with other people, their self identity and their gender expression is completely different. So for example, I might identify as being trans, but I might enjoy dressing up like a dinosaur. That's
right,
just my gender expression, right? That
yeah,
I just might want to look like a dinosaur, right?
yeah,
But it doesn't take anything away from my gender identity, which in how we present ourselves to the world is how we present ourselves to the world.
yeah,
Like I would say that I wear quite masculine clothing.
mhm,
I'd say that I have, kind of like a neutral style haircut, for
yeah,
example, because it's quite long on top and short on the side. That is my gender expression.
yeah,
But if, say, for instance, somebody that was to walk in, or somebody that was to come and be in our spaces, who was like, I really enjoy dressing up like, I don't know, I really enjoy dressing up like superheroes. Oh,
yeah,
right, okay, then, amazing. That is part of their gender expression.
okay,
Does that make sense?
kind of,
Sort of.
yeah,
Like, and it's hard to explain. Like, well, we could literally talk about this, and and it's so difficult not to get into it because our identity is made up of so many different elements. So many different elements. We've got our gender identity, which is our sense of self within our
right,
body, within our mind, right? We've got our sexuality, which
yeah,
is who we love,
yeah,
what love we want to receive, what is our attraction to other human beings. We've got our gender expression. Our gender expression is between like the masculine, feminine, and neutral spaces. And that comes in the clothes that we wear, the hairstyle that we have, the the tone of voice that we use, the way that we hold ourselves in different spaces, and we've got our sex characteristics, and our sex characteristics is what our body's makeup is, the bits that we have no control over, our hormones, our chromosomes, our
yeah,
secondary sort of stuff. Like we have no control over that, right? And
yeah,
then we've got our assignment at birth. Like there is
mhm,
so many elements that
yeah,
make up us as a human being. And this is where people get lost in
yeah,
thinking, well, no, you've got your sexuality and you've got your gender, and that is it, right? And your gender has to be binary, it has to be man or woman, and your sexuality can't go anything. You have to be attracted to men, you have to be attracted to women, or you're attracted to both, and that's it, right? And that, what, 30, 40, 50 years ago was, that's where we were at.
yeah,
Whereas like now we've got more research, there's more studies that have come forward. Like there are studies about like a trans person's brain being completely different to say somebody else's brain. And
right,
when they're talking about the scientific elements of that, it shows that the neural, like, I'm not very
yeah,
sciencey, so
I
I
know
might
what
not
I
get the
mean,
words right. But like the neural pathways are routed differently to how the body has been birthed.
oh, okay,
So it shows in somebody's brain that the neural pathways are different. There is this disconnect in the brain between the body that has come out and the brain is what the brain is saying that is different. And that's what we call gender dysphoria. And that is
yeah,
where this disconnect of gender dysphoria comes from. Does that make sense?
yeah,
Or
that's good,
sort
yeah,
of?
yeah, no, so thanks so much for explaining that.
That's all right. That's all
And
right.
and I think that is a case of there hasn't been that explanation. I mean,
No.
I'm 50 odd, and it's kind of like, yeah, I was brought up as male, female,
Yeah.
gay, straight, that's it,
Yeah.
and just plod on kind of thing.
Yeah.
And, coming into society today when things are changing. And I actually think it's good that things are
Yeah.
changing because I
Yeah.
don't think we should be put in boxes. As
No.
we started off this podcast where you were saying, let's just be our authentic selves.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I think we should be allowed. And it's not even a case of allowed, is it? We should just be.
Yeah, it should just be, yeah. That's
It's
it.
not a case of being allowed.
Yeah, yeah,
Because we're not going to get chucked into prison for it.
yeah, yeah.
Well, who knows nowadays?
But you should just, it should just be you, and it is this permission to just be who you are. Like, there are so many people that I have met on my journey where they have been made to feel like they are less than for being who they are. And it takes such a strength to step out into the light and out of a lineup
Yeah,
of like everything being very samey and everything being very conditioned and everything being very gender normed. It takes a lot of strength for somebody to step out of that lineup and go, actually, no, I don't fit that. I don't want to
yeah,
do that. That doesn't make sense to me. Like, my 11-year-old is gender fluid, and gender fluid is this transition, or not transition, sorry, this fluctuation between what we would say the traditional genders, which be male and female. And some days they will get up out of bed and they're like, I want to put my tutu on and I want to put my makeup on. They were assigned male at birth. They want to put my makeup on. I want to, I want to do my hair and all that sort of stuff. And then the following day, they might wake up and be more, I'm feeling, I feel like I just want to put some joggers on today. Feel like I just want to, put a big hoodie on and, and play on my laptop, eat, like, he's very much into gaming. And he is 11 years old. And the worst thing that I could do as a parent is tell him, no, 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 you are a boy
yeah.
and you must fit into this category.
Mhm.
Because what effect that has on him is his mental health.
Absolutely.
Their mental health to me is the biggest priority. I couldn't care what they got in GCSEs. I couldn't care what they got, if they decided that they didn't want to ride a bike, if they wanted to, go swimming. I couldn't care less.
Yeah,
As long as they are happy within their soul, within their mind, that's all that matters to me. And giving them permission to do that is like this. It's this like almost this sense of absolute complete validation for
absolutely.
who they are,
And that's
and I wouldn't
really,
change that.
yeah, that's hugely important. And I congratulate you in just doing that because as a child I was at senior school, I knew I was gay.
Yeah,
Absolutely knew I was gay. But
yeah,
my parent was so homophobic,
yeah,
absolutely couldn't come out as gay. I didn't come out until as gay until I was 30, by which
mm,
point I'd been married, I'd got a son, had gone through awful domestic abuse in my relationship or in
yeah,
my marriage, and pretty much got blackmailed into coming out.
yeah.
Who wants their children to go through that?
I know, I
Wouldn't
know.
you just want them to have, that was probably 15 years
Yeah,
of my life where it wasn't me.
yeah. Though, and like my parents, like me and my parents, so my parents are still together, happily married, still together, and they have a sister and they have a nephew, and that's like our family. Like, our
Yeah,
family is very, very small,
yeah,
and our journey has been like a roller coaster, because I came out as being gay when I was like 13, maybe 13 or 14.
yeah,
And at that time my mum was like, it's a phase, you'll get over it. And the more conversations that we have now, as me as an adult, their fear of what I was going to face not being straight was why they said to me that it was a phase. Why they kept telling me all of the negatives about being gay, because they wanted to try and change my opinion to protect me. And that and in itself, it's like, oh my goodness, that sounds ridiculous, but it actually isn't ridiculous.
Mm.
It's so valid because our parents actually, or parents in ourselves, want to protect our children, but sometimes we do it in all the wrong ways. And I'm a parent. Like, I've got two little humans. Like, they're not mine biologically, but they are mine.
Mm.
And I think to myself when they want to do stuff or they want to go somewhere, I'm like, oh my goodness, no, 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 no. And then you try and come up with all these mad excuses of why. And you
Yeah.
just think, why am I trying to prevent this? Because if I prevent it, they're going to push back and they're going to rebel and then they're going to go and do it anyway. So for me, like, and as I kind of continued on my self-discovery journey of, finding my gender identities, being trans, and then going having surgery, going having gender affirming care, for them it's been such a journey of acceptance
Yeah.
and a journey of going, yeah, but you're still my child. And yeah,
Yeah.
I am still your child, but I'm so much more happier
Mm.
now than what I was, say, 10 years ago. And
Yeah.
that is such a big thing for us. Like, and we don't, and I completely, these little humans that we're given, whether we birth them, whether we adopt them, whether we foster them, whatever we do to become a parent, we
Yeah.
want to hold them, we want to nurture them, we want to look after them. And sometimes we hold on too tight. And
Mm.
we hold on too tight because of fear, and we hold
Yeah.
on too tight because we don't want any harm to come to these little humans. But sometimes we have to allow that journey. Sometimes we have to get out of our own way and just allow them to go on that journey, because they'll come back to you so much more if you do. And that's something that my parents have learned over the last 10 years, I would say. They've just learned to let go of it a bit better.
Yeah, and I think you're right, aren't you, that we just want our children to be happy,
Yeah.
and we do want to protect them, but then the only way we could do that is to have them in our care 24/7, and that's
Yeah.
not healthy at all. And
Yeah.
and they're gonna go and learn, and they're gonna come across a lot of things that we don't know about.
Yeah.
Um, and as you say again, mental health is just look at mental health at the minute. It's through the roof with
Yeah.
people are struggling so much. And as you said earlier, the NHS is
Yeah.
just absolutely, you know, it's not there. It's not providing services.
No. No.
And let me see. So, um, so I've got some quick fire questions for you.
Okay. No
Uh,
worries.
uh, just to wrap things up,
Yeah.
completely unrelated. So this one's off. What's one thing people often get wrong about inclusivity?
That it's really scary. That it's really scary and it's a lot of hard work.
Yeah, and they just need to talk, don't they?
That's it. That's it.
So next one, completely unrelated. If you could have dinner with any influential figure, past or present, who would it be and why?
God, that's so difficult. So one person I would love to go for dinner with is a person called Jamie Windust. They are an author, a public speaker, and a model. And they are one of my favorite authors. And I would love to sit down with them because they are so fabulous. I would love to, because I feel like we'd go to this really like cosmopolitan extravaganza place to eat,
Yeah.
and it'd be great. And I'd love to do that.
Wow. Um, and lastly, what's your favourite way to unwind after a busy day?
Spending time with the kids, I guess, and being out in the sun. I like being out in the sun.
Mm, lovely day as well, isn't it?
Oh, I know, it's absolutely gorgeous, yeah.
Good.
Being out in the sun, yeah.
Alex, have you got anything that you would like to lastly just say to our listeners, or that you want to put out there?
I think it's just like, you don't have to understand like everybody's like lived experience, but I think it's just about respecting and validating that lived experience. And, if you're on this journey where you're learning about the LGBT community for work, for personal, for your family, for your partners, maybe, like, just give yourself like compassion and like just allow yourself that time and space, because you don't have to know everything right away. You don't have to come away from something and go, right, I'm an absolute expert. It's
Yeah.
about just giving yourself that time and space to learn and understand and validate people's lived experiences, because that is the biggest thing that you can give somebody. Yeah, that would probably be my last bit.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed listening to the episode and learned some tips on how to manage your emotions in a healthy way. If you've been affected by anything in the podcast, or if you want to share your feedback or questions, please email clare@angermanagementcoach.co.uk. Thank you for listening, and do remember, you have the power to calm your emotions and communicate effectively.